madman, stage left. The audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. The curtain rises and the players come out. Webs of lies spinning from their mouths. Stop looking, listen for a little while. Pay no attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow breathing in your blood. It's never enough. Program reality, double thing duality. Root upon the face of all mankind. Our numbers up and the dead woman sound. Go along to get along. Hypnotized by the siren song. The flames are empty and the crypts are cracking open. The hordes upon you and you stand there frozen, waiting for the word. Stand in line and wait your turn. Don't follow the strings to find out who is pulling. Just drink your poison, keep on laughing and drooling, eating your own flesh. The master always knows what's best. Worldwide genocide. The overlords of hungry parasites. They point the finger and the eagles fly. Raining fire, children die. Starving plague, paralyzed. A pile of bodies rotting, covered in fire. But no one wants to talk about it. It's safer not to talk about it. Pick up my strings, no more bowing to the masters. I tried to run, but they only came faster. Now I stand my ground. I ain't backing down. Silver bullets in my pistol in my holster. My will is strengthened and my confidence is bolstered. Don't test my resolve. Don't test my resolve.
Hello and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. My name is Cliff. I'm joined by Dustin tonight. It's Sunday, July the 31st, 2022. Tim is taking a break. He will be back. He's probably on one of those $1.50 trips to Thailand he likes to brag about.
The lady boys.
Yeah, but you know.
Either that or his invisibility cloak worked and he's sitting right here.
Or he's finally started that cult he's been talking about. You just never can tell with a guy like Tim. Mm-hmm. But he will be back. So don't fret about that. Me and Dustin are going to try to hold down the fort tonight. We're going to get into some news stories, a few local things, a few international, a few national news stories, and we're going to talk all about the Battle of Athens, Tennessee. And if you never heard of that, I think you're in for a real treat. If you have heard about it, maybe you know a little something we don't know about it, and you can, pitch in and give us something. Hello, Sean. Nice to have you join us. Yeah, Battle of Athens, Tennessee. I've read, read some articles, read, Wikipedia, watched a couple of YouTube videos. I've heard it talked about on podcasts. So, I've probably read or watched or talked about it for a few hours, you know. So I know a little about it, but I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who know more. So if you do, be sure and chime in and let us know if we get something wrong, or if I missed something, or if, you know, if there's an important detail you think I ought to hit.
I'm not too knowledgeable in it, so.
Yeah, well, we can kind of learn together. I think that'll be fun. I think I have enough of a gist of the overall picture of the events of that day that I can go through them, and, you know, we can maybe look at the Wikipedia as we go, and we can talk about what we find there. But I think the overall message is, you know, more important than the facts. Hey there, Maria D. Glad to have you with us. She says hi to everybody. If you're in that chat, jump on in there. Save those geese. Yeah, we were going to have Justin in, or we're going to have Jonathan in tonight, because we were going to get into some Star Wars talk. We're going to have to put that off for a little bit longer, but I did wear my Star Wars Family Guy. Let me, there we go. Blue Harvest tee. I don't know if y'all seen that, but it's been years since I've seen it. I don't know if it holds up, but when I watched it back in the day when it was new, I thought it was pretty darn good. They actually did 2 episodes.
Did the whole original trilogy, I think.
Yeah, they did 2 that were pretty good, and then the third one was crap. They even put a, you know, in the floating text before, they said, basically, with the first 2 episodes of this series, we had time to do something that we loved, and we made them what we felt were really good. But in this one, Fox was just pushing us to get it out there, so we made it a big shit sandwich, basically, and it just had to give them something to put on the air. So we're not proud of this. This is not the product that we wanted to deliver to you, but we ran out of time, so this is what you get. But the first 2, the Blue Harvest was the first one it was called, and they actually named it after when they were filming Star Wars. They had a fake movie set called Blue Harvest, so people would know what they were doing up there, and that's where they got the name. But we will get into some Star Wars, because I think there are a lot of parallels between Star Wars and our history and our current political climate. So I think that'd be a fun conversation. So we will still do that, but we're just going to have to put it off for a little bit longer. But that being said, did you have a good week, Dustin?
It's been kind of rough. Ended up doing, you know, just overtime at work, and also trying to get those photos that I took last Friday. I got all those edited up, and haven't got all the sets delivered yet, but I got a couple of them out.
I know that editing process can be frustrating. I've seen B do that enough to know that it can be aggravating.
Luckily, music photography it's a little easier, though. It's just like, it was cool. Like the backlighting, they had it really good, but they kept the front lot. They kept it on like a purple color instead of switching it over to white, and it really clashed whenever they had the red and oranges in the back, and it looked like flames. And then all their skins illuminated with a purple hue too, and it's just kind of like.
I always like those purple lights at the Capone's whenever B's taking band photos there and stuff. I thought those were some of the cooler looking ones.
Well, but whenever you have, it clashes with the background whenever it's like, you know, it looks like there's fire because it's red, orange, yellow, and then you have purple on the front of them. It's like, it kind of clashes a little bit. But whenever the backlights were blue or they're purples or greens, the purple front light works well.
Yeah.
Which I've noticed, like when we've shot there, but whenever we've had photos taken, it's like they always have it white front light, and then they have the backlighting something else. And I think those pictures always, like, sort of, because I like natural a little better anyway. But
well, I went down to Lookout Mountain there, just south of Chattanooga, over state line. That was pretty cool, man. You could see, it's probably one of the best views I've ever seen. I'm not sure exactly what the elevation is, but you can see 7 states from there, and they've got a little wheel so you can look out and see which state you're looking at. And like I said, you could see, I couldn't believe you could see all the way past Oak Ridge, you know, the big nuclear, the cooling towers up there. You could see those way off in the distance, and you could see them past them. You could see up to Virginia and Kentucky. That's just crazy. Yeah, we're talking about flat Earth and stuff. Now that elevation allows you to see that high, and you know, the Earth is not a perfect sphere, so the idea that it's going to be exactly 8 inches per, you know, mile of curvature, or every mile, or curvature for every mile, is you know, a little bit. It's easy to misunderstand if you really don't have a basic understanding of.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, the fire tower on Holston. It's like whenever if it's clear or it's evening, you can see all the way up to Mountain City, no problem. You can see into Virginia and all that jazz from.
Yeah, when you get up on
there.
Yeah, when you get up on the spine of Iron Mountain, coming across Mountain Trail, up across the lake there. You can see a good ways in every direction too. But unfortunately, usually when I do that hike, it is very foggy and I have a hard time seeing it. So
Very hazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot of hazy problems around here. It's hard to get good views.
yeah, that down there on Lookout Mountain, that was awesome. The Rock City was really pretty. You got to go through. They had a real creepy like cave that you go into. Parts of it are a real cavern, and in other parts of it, they've just had like two rocks that are close together. So they manufactured a roof over it out of concrete and stuff to make it look like it's a continuous cave. But it's got these really creepy old gnomes and fairy tales from. I mean, they're the things. Most of them are 90 years old. They're from when the Carter family who started that. They called it the rock garden, and the lady who ran it, she Mrs. Carter, she collected like 400 different plants and basically had her garden there to save the what do you call it, the genetic line of those plants, and she showed off her rock formations and stuff like that. So it was really cool. And I'm telling you, man, those gnomes were super creepy, and the fairy tales they had. It was probably a couple 100-foot tunnel with branches off, and then had a great big room of a lot of them all together. But yeah, it was pretty cool. And then went camping after that. Got back this morning. Let me tell you something. You want to get some sleep? Don't take 11-year-old girls camping. I'm telling you, man. I probably got to sleep. I had to wait till all the kids were asleep, and that was probably after 2. And so I sat up with the fire for a little while and made sure everybody was good. And I was up till after 3, and then got up at 7 because the rain started coming in. And we knew it was going to rain, but we were like, well, as soon as we feel like it's going to start, we'll get up and start packing up. So we did that. And
I've had that happen before, being on the mountain, and it's like, we had like a get together, and like everyone left but like me and 2 other people.
Yeah.
And then it just comes torrential pouring, and it's like, well, we got to break camp down in this. It's like, that's fun.
well, we went up to Cardin's Bluff. I hadn't been up there in years, and it's a lot nicer than I remembered it being when I was in high school and stuff. I usually don't pay campsites. I usually just go somewhere off the lake or off the trail and find a flat spot and sit up. But it's convenient to be able to get into the car and stuff.
There's dozens of camp spots off any of the trails around here, so you can just pick your poison.
Yep. And I've always liked, having less likelihood of running into people when I'm camping. I like to have the place to myself. But we actually had this point on Cardin's Bluff. Nicest campsite I'd seen out there is right out of the point, sticking right under the water, and wasn't anybody else around. Somebody that had reserved it left, and they left their firewood there and everything, and left us a citronella torch. It had a bad wasp problem, yellow jackets everywhere. But anyway, we still had a good night. But yeah, so that was my week, and we didn't do a show Wednesday, but Tim and I were talking. We were planning on doing one, but I didn't get back from Chattanooga in time. So we were talking. The flooding in Kentucky was definitely something we were going to bring up on the show. They reported that there were at least 8 dead from it, and then the governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, he put a state of emergency in, and they're seeking federal aid and stuff, and it was pretty bad up there. It was a lot worse even than what we saw down in Gatlinburg or up in Virginia the other day. Elkhorn City. Look at some of these photos here. Is if you've ever heard the show, the podcast, the Penny Royal. It's very interesting. It's something about Kentucky that you'd never know. There's a whole history of fascists and UFOs and like raining meat, and it's a hell of a saga. Now Penny Royal, the first season's about 7 hours long, and if you listen to podcasts at work, I definitely recommend you do it. The second season is it's a little more convoluted. It builds on everything in the first season. It's still really good, but the first season's a lot easier to keep up with. I'm gonna have to listen to the second one again to even know what the hell they're talking about on some of this stuff. But the Elkhorn City was made famous in that, and also that show, what's that show on, it's a ghost show. Now I can't think of it, because they talk about it a lot in Penny Royal. Oh well, I can't think of it, but it takes place in Kentucky, and it's like a horror show, kind of serial show, and it's based on real life, like a ghost story, real life ghost story show. But yeah, they had it pretty bad up there.
American Horror Story?
No.
I was about to say, I was like,
Ryan Hall, y'all had good flood coverage. He collected money and brought supplies to the people. Well, that's great. That's great. And there's they're driving boats through town here. You know, it's old downtown, and I'm sure I'll think of that show here as soon as we get done on the show tonight. I'm sure I'll think of that. We was also talking last week, or Wednesday before last, we were talking about all these, you know, child molesters and stuff like this that they've been finding in schools and police. And then I've come across this story, so I figured I'd share it with you just in another one. This lady right here, she bought her, this is from HollywoodUnlocked.com. She was a daycare runner and a daycare. She ran her own daycare, and she's had some children confess to her that her husband had molested them, and she shot him in the leg, and she had shot him, and somebody called the cops, and they came and she wouldn't open the door for him, and they asked if there was a gunshot wound victim in there, and she said, "Yeah, it's my husband. I shot him in the legs. He's a child molester," and she'd apparently been married to him for 5 years, but. I have to imagine she was trying to shoot his balls and probably hit him in the leg. Yeah. But they took the guy in, and that just yet another one of those police that involved in that. But at least, hopefully, he won't find himself able to do that again. Let's see. We've got also
one thing I don't understand in the stuff with in that topic. Why is it always, you know, like just say how you said school stuff, whenever it's teachers, whenever it's women that are in it, why do they never use like the terms like molester? They always morph it to make it not sound as bad because the woman did it.
They'll say this teacher had sex with a student. Not, you know, if it was a male student having sex with a female, they would be like, she raped the student. Mm-hmm. But if it's a hot 29-year-old teacher and, you know, she rapes a 14-year-old kid, they always say, well, she's accused of, you know, having sex or inappropriate
relations. Like,
yeah,
it's like, no, you're.
I mean, just because you as a teenage boy, you know, that's something that you fantasize about and that you think you want to happen, but that you're still a victim of abuse. Yeah, you're not capable of really dealing with that, especially somebody an authority figure who is doing that to you. That's them victimizing you, whether you realize it or not. And
it's always, whenever it's the other way around, whenever it's like a male teacher or something doing it to a female student, it's like the headlines are always totally different. It's totally like, it's like, why is there bias there?
Yeah.
There shouldn't be.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it may or may not be equally as damaging, but it's definitely damaging to a child. Yeah, it's for some reason I think it may, you know, maybe it's just my male bias or something. It seems like it probably is worse for a female, but you know, it's still bad either way, and we shouldn't give these teachers a pass either.
Yeah, it's like they're still kids. They're not to that age of consent, you know, stuff yet.
There's a joke that you see, well, where are all these fucking wild teachers when I was in school, you know, and that's a common thing that people say, but, you know, if that had happened to you, it probably wouldn't affect you the way that you think it would.
Yeah.
So let's move on to this one. We've also been talking a little bit about this. California, now get this shit. California may give gender-affirming care to children coming from other states.
Maria.
I agree, guys. They give Pretty Woman a pass, Maria says. It's just ugly. I agree. This here, though, we were talking about how, you know, they're getting into these kids' heads younger and younger and allowing them to make life-altering decisions when they're young children before they're even capable of driving a car.
Yeah.
Or, you know, this is basically California saying here, if you want to read up on this, you can, but California they passed a law, or they have a law they're working its way through the state house, that is saying that if your child runs away to California, they can give that child what they call gender-affirming care, what I call child mutilation, to children coming from other states. So if your child runs away and goes to California, they may give that child a double mastectomy. They may give it started on hormone blockers. They may, you know, castrate the child. Castrates, in my opinion. Yeah.
Which,
I agree with Mary.
It's like they're children.
Yeah. I mean, why in the world? Who?
It's like
the state.
Hell, when I was a child, I'd pretend I was a fucking dinosaur.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, I mean, sometimes it's still kind of fun.
But dude, I don't care what you do when you're. We've said it so many times on this channel. I don't care what you do, but anything sexual or anything that is irreversible shouldn't be brought into children and taught as if it's normal.
You know, because it's like I've heard people that have said that they thought, and then whenever they got older, they are glad they didn't go through with stuff.
Yeah. Well, just think about
Just
think about if the average person came up to a kid on the street and was like trying to convince them to cut their breasts off. You'd say this person's a lunatic. They need to be locked up. But because it's the state, or now even the Department of Health and Human Services, the Federal Department of Health and Human Service, who has a transgender person as one of the top bigwigs, and he's not in charge of Health and Human Services, but he's like assistant deputy secretary or something like that. He's definitely up there, and he's considered an admiral, or she. Dick Levine, or formerly Richard Levine, now Rachel Levine, who was a father and had children, and then now he decides that he's going to not only support but encourage gender affirming care for children as his role at Health and Human Services, and he got this stuff from California. It's sick, man. It's sick. But
like I said, it's like if you're an adult, or and you get to that, and if you still feel the same way, it's that you should be able to do it.
Yep.
That's your.
Yeah, I think you should be able to chop your arm off if you want to. If you're an adult and that's the decision you made. But I think that it's insane to just allow it to be encouraged with children.
For kids, because kids do irrational things too.
Yeah. I had a kid one time, we were camping, and he came outside. We were, I don't know, 13, 14, 15 years old, something like this. And we were camping, and we were building a fire where we just sat out there and had just got the fire started. The wood was kind of wet, and we were having a hard time getting it going. And we just got it going. It started going good. And he comes out and whoosh, pours water on it. We're like, dude, what the hell? He's like, well, it was hot. So that's a kid for you. I mean, that's a particularly dumb example of something a kid does. There's plenty of dumber things that kids do, like sticking their fingers in holes and stuff like that, getting their fingers stuck, sticking your head in a banister, and having to have the firefighters come and cut you out of there. But yeah, sure, go ahead and have a double mastectomy, kid. Let's see. We got. Now, you remember, this says, this isn't political talk. Expert weighs in on the blackout challenge, killing children. Apparently, it says it's another viral online trend. Encourages people to hold their breath until they pass out. But I tell you, this is not a new thing. Kids were doing this when I was a kid. And I'm sure they were doing that before.
Yeah, whenever throwing a tantrum, I'm going to hold my breath till I pass out.
Well, do you remember whether this was probably, I don't know, my 8th grade year, so probably, I don't know, 94, 95, something like that. There was a trend going around back then of kids like holding each other's, putting each other in sleeper holds. Yeah,
I remember.
And I remember kids like falling and passing out, and falling out in place, and it was like, oh, let's see how long we can pass out or whatever. And my ex-wife even like fell and busted her head open at the pool and had like a big bad concussion, and she was. It was a bad trend. So this isn't.
I never participated in that.
No, I didn't either.
But it was just like, no. I was like, I don't like being not in control of my body.
No, no doubt. I don't like to get drunk either, man. You don't want to be out of control. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this is responsible for at least 80 deaths in years prior. Now, it doesn't say how many years prior. It could be a really long time. But there was a lawsuit filed by the family of a 9-year-old who died, and her parents are suing TikTok and blaming TikTok. Now, don't get me wrong.
There's a lot of cancer shit on TikTok.
Yeah. I mean, it's the internet. You can't. I'm sorry, you can't sue. I don't think you can. Maybe they'll. But ultimately, I think even though I'm not judging these parents, because sometimes you can't watch everything your kids do, but I don't think my 9-year-old don't have TikTok. Didn't have TikTok. My 11-year-old don't have TikTok. I don't think it's a great idea to just give your kids a portal into, the open internet. because there's a lot worse things than the pass out challenge out there
yeah.
that those kids could find. So
Yeah.
Blaming TikTok for that is, I don't think really.
Well, I guess just where it's the cool thing where, you know, it's like that's where everyone goes to do all that stuff. So you start seeing these like, okay, I want to be cool. You know, it's the thing like I want to be cool. I want to be.
You know what I heard about TikTok is though is in China on TikTok they promote content that is like engineering and math and like cool tricks to do with your brains, you know, to impress people with how smart you are and how talented you are. And in America, they promote dance stuff, rant videos, you know, recipe stuff, more fluff, and not only fluff, but then, you know, like I said, the whole dance thing, it's almost like a bit of mind control almost to just turn everything into a dance. And like, I saw one thing, it's like, what was it? Do the dance for, you know, 10 dances you can do to stop monkeypox or something like that. 10 TikTok dances you can do to stop monkeypox. Like, what are we even talking about here, people? Yeah, I just don't get it. Well, we also talked in past episodes. We've been watching with very much interest as the events of not only Eastern Europe but Western Europe now continue to develop. We started with Holland, or you know, the Netherlands, where the Dutch farmers were protesting the nitrogen cuts, which were in reality a limitation in the amount of cattle they could have, that within 3 years would reduce the amount of cattle these families were able to own by 80%. And we've also heard talks from where the government is basically planning to force them out of business and then buy up all this farmland so that they can put in housing for a lot of the migrants that they've let flow in unchecked throughout Europe over the last few years.
I know with a lot of that, was the headline I saw, was it in the Netherlands, Denmark, somewhere over there, where, you know, in this retaliation, you know, from the farmers, which is great. It's like, you know, they're bypassing, they're not selling stuff to stores, they're actually selling everything to individuals. So they're just doing big farmers markets.
Yeah, it was in Denmark.
Okay, it was Denmark. I was thinking Denmark and Netherlands.
No, you're right. It was Netherlands. Yeah, that was where it started in Netherlands.
So now more people are starting to buy directly from farmers and having big farmers markets than shipping stuff to the big, huge grocery stores.
And we saw it's going across from Denmark over the border, or I mean, not Denmark. I keep saying Denmark now. Over from the Netherlands over the border to Germany. We saw those guys in solidarity shutting down the border, and we saw stuff happening in Sri Lanka, where basically the system failed them and they took over. I haven't seen any updates on that in a little while. I've taken a week off from the news, except for a little bit every day local. Been kind of keeping up with that, but I haven't been following world news really this week. Like I said, went camping, didn't work for a week. Took off, you know, did a little vacation stuff.
Hey, sometimes you need that.
Yeah, had to chill out my brain a little bit there.
Disconnect.
Yeah, so that was nice.
Get that moment.
Well, we did see though after this stuff spreading out, and we saw it in Chile and Ecuador and Argentina, some in Brazil. Now we're seeing it right here in Italy. Well, they can hear it on there, huh? Oh, Mamma Mia, what you honking for? It's what the spicy racket out there. The Italian farmers had enough.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, people are finally starting to learn there's more of us than there are today.
Yep. Well, what we got to do is figure that out before they have enough robots to exterminate us all, or whatever it is they're planning on doing. I think they're starving us to death right now. They estimate between 60 and 72 million people in the third world were killed by famine since the lockdowns, because basically it shut down all the shipping lanes, and the people with more money were able to buy food. The people without money were not able to get it. So we're still able to get food over here, but it's at the expense of people in the third world. And 60 to 72 million people, estimated by the UN, have died that starved to death since the lockdown started, that would not have otherwise starved to death without the lockdowns. And it looks like it's continuing. They want us to eat the bugs.
You know, it's kind of like, I feel that's much worse than anything that they were, you know, pushing with those lockdowns. It's
well, how many people died from COVID around the world? Let's look that up real quick.
But if you don't like lockdowns, you're a bastard that kills grandma. But look, all these people.
We've had 6.4 million deaths worldwide because of COVID, according to this. Well, I just Googled it, and this is from CDC.gov. So they're saying 6.4 million deaths worldwide. And we shut down the economy, and there's no evidence that we saved any lives from doing that.
It's been more detrimental to the world economy than.
Yeah.
It's actually probably more detrimental to the health of the people, too.
Absolutely.
You just put people in bubbles, and then now that they're going back out, your immunity is not up to everything else.
Well, during COVID, I want to make sure I got this right, but during COVID, I think the number one cause of death among young people was drug overdose during the two, and it was like number 5 or 6, and it went up to number 1.
It jumped up really big. Like, I think, didn't we pull this up one show few months ago? We pulled something up with this.
Yeah.
I
don't remember exactly what it was, but I just want to make sure I get it right. Let's see. Unintentional drug overdose mortality and years of life lost. A total of 21,689 people from 10 to 24 died of unintentional drug overdose. And hang on. Oh no, that was from 2019. But fentanyl, here it is. Fentanyl overdose becomes the leading cause. This is from WRAL.com, North Carolina's Capital News. Fentanyl overdose becomes leading cause of death for adults age 18 to 45. So that's insane, y'all. That started over the lockdowns. Lots of people didn't go to their mental health treatments. They didn't get their mental health drugs. Lots of people, I'm not even necessarily a big supporter or believer, having worked in mental health field for a long time, in a lot of those drugs. I've seen a few cases where they help people long term. But I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you what you should do. But a lot of people didn't get to take those drugs that they believe help them. A lot of people didn't get to the therapy appointments. A lot of people didn't get treatments for cancer. A lot of things like that. They didn't see loved ones. Depression got worse.
If you ever one of these people have a normal brain, it's just that getting cooped up like that. It's like it'll make you.
Yeah.
Not well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know plenty of people had a really hard time
the
with
people with very extroverted personality types. If they're not out around people, that it drives them crazy. So it's I can.
Well, let's show you one more thing here before we get into the Battle of Athens. We're about 33 minutes in, so I don't want to keep y'all too long tonight, but I'm going to show you this nightmare of well, I'll let you decide what you think it is. I shouldn't pre-shadow it, but you figure it out. What do you think of this? Let's make sure the folks can hear this. I don't think they can unless... There we go. All right. I don't think anyone has a normal brain anymore, says Maria. Yeah, I think you're right. They just recently put out a long-term study too. I don't have it with me here. I didn't plan to talk on it tonight or anything, but they just did a long-term study where they found that it's not chemical imbalances that are cause for depression. I've always said I don't believe that your chemicals in your brain cause the depression. I believe the depression causes those chemicals to go down. Like if something bad happens to you and you get yourself in a perpetual state of depression. I've let it happen to me before. Mm-hmm. And you eat yourself up and you pick at yourself, and
it actually becomes addictive.
Yeah,
it works the same way with drugs and stuff. You get to that point of just you like to feel shitty.
Yeah, yeah, and especially if you can. Gain sympathy from it, and your life hasn't been going well, and then suddenly because you're doing poorly, people are more likely to have sympathy for you and maybe pet you a little, and that can make it more addictive too. But anyway, that's
I don't like those spirals though. I hate them. No. I'm like, when people like clout chase over like stuff like that, they're like, I'm so depressed. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, you're not.
You just want somebody to tell you. You just want
someone to,
You want somebody to give you attention without you having to actually do anything.
Yeah, it's like if you were, you wouldn't be like enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly. But you do get that dopamine hit. I mean, I guess if you are depressed and you go and post about how depressed you are and post a picture of yourself crying or something, and everybody says, "Cheer up, you're beautiful, sweetheart." I mean, I guess that does give you. I mean, it's not going to fix anything. You're going to have to do it over and over again, or you're
It also just hits the social media dilemma too of like always chasing that next, high with that.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's a temporary fix because you'll just be craving that again. So yeah, before I show you, make sure I got everything going here. It looks like we got it going. Here's our last part for the green room tonight. We're going to look at this is from How Things Work. This is from the Saudi Arabian government. Mohammed bin Salman basically wants this to be his pyramid project, is what he said. He's the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, effectively the king. He's calling all the shots, even though the king is still alive. But let's watch this together real quick. This is their $1 trillion linear city they want to build in a 170-kilometer long mirrored skyscraper. Yep.
For too long, humanity has existed within dysfunctional and polluted cities that ignore nature. Now, a revolution in civilization is taking place. Imagine a traditional city and consolidating its footprint, designing to protect and enhance nature. The line will be home to 9 million residents and will be built with a footprint of just 34 square kilometers. And we are designing it to provide a healthier, more sustainable quality of life.
That's right on page.
The line's communities are organized in 3 dimensions.
Some sort of like big
Residents
storm
have access to all
Yeah.
daily
Pulls it over.
needs within 5-minute walk neighborhoods. And the line's infrastructure makes it possible to travel end to end in 20 minutes with no need for cars.
So, you know what this seems like to me? This seems like more of these, like the Prince of Saudi Arabia is like, where can we put all these poor people where I do not have to see them? Like, I feel like that's what he's saying.
Put them in a town and build a mirror. Right?
Yes, get these peasants out there. I don't want to look at any of these people. Let's put them out in the middle of the mountains and make it where they can all see each other and they can have their little like an ant farm, or they want us living like cockroaches in a wall.
Though I guess, I mean, even though if we go with Tim's city theory, which I agree with most of it too.
Yeah.
It's like, stuff like this, like, oh, you can put this many people in this tiny little long strip.
Yep.
We don't have problems with land. It's like that we're not overpopulated.
Exactly. No,
We can create more stuff. It's like, what is it? Like if you do the population density of Paris, France, you could fit everyone in the world in like a size of the state in the state of Texas or something.
Well, yeah.
Similar to that.
Well, the one I can remember, there was 2 of them. If you have the greater Los Angeles area, you could fit every person in the world in a 3-foot square there in the greater Los Angeles area. If you give everyone in the world, every man, woman, and child, a 1/4 acre of land, you could fit in them in Australia and still have over half of Queensland left. So there's plenty of land for everybody here. Now, admittedly, okay, so we've talked about this before on the show. It's white people are already, and people in Western countries, I should say, not necessarily white people, but people in Western country are already below replacement levels of what do you call it? Having children. They're not having enough children. They're having like 1.8 children. You need like 2.1 to be able to have replacement levels. So most of Western civilization is already
in decline.
Yes, they're already, the population's already on its way down.
Well,
so when they talk about population control, they're not talking about the Western world. We're already doing that voluntarily. It's like that movie Idiocracy, where you had the couple, they were deciding
the
not
ones
to have
that
kids.
the smart ones, because it's like we're like, well, when you look at that, we can't financially do this. We're not ready. We don't want to do that yet. And then it's like they start going, and then whenever they push the time on, then they can't.
Yeah.
And then the dumb people have like 45 kids already with
Yeah.
with like 3 different women.
Well, and then you have like a lot of people, back in when we were at a higher level of birth in the country. Just think about, it was just like 60, 70 years ago that you really had the women go into the workforce. And so a lot of women started wanting to be career women and pursue careers, and they put off, or didn't have children. So you have that already. You have a couple different things. There's a lot really going into the declining population of the West, but ultimately it just comes right down to people of the West don't have to have children, and a lot of them don't want to. And there's other parts of the world, that's where the population is growing. So when these people, these billionaires, these World Economic Forum, these Bill Gates people, when they start talking about population control, they're saying there's too many people in the third world, and you can take it however you want to, but ultimately they're saying there's too many black and brown people around, and because they've already got the West under control. That's where most of the white people live, is in the West, so they don't really care about that. They're looking to eliminate black and brown populations. So they can put it under the guise of, they want to feed everybody or whatever, but ultimately there wouldn't be food problems if it weren't for you all manipulating the world trade markets with your, different laws and different regulations and your agreements to withhold agriculture and withhold oil and withhold things that these developing countries need. So now you want to stick them all in a box. Let's finish watching this video real quick.
In zero carbon emissions. By leveraging AI technology, services are autonomous, saving you time and effort.
Before I get back and push the minus to take it off.
Designed by world-leading architects, the line is 500 meters tall, 200 meters wide, 170 kilometers long, and housed within an elegant mirror glass facade. Intelligent solutions create efficiency and year-round temperate microclimate with natural ventilation. Energy and water supplies are 100% renewable. The line is designed as a series of unique communities, offering a wealth of amenities, providing equitable views and immediate access to the surrounding nature. With 40% of the world accessible within 6 hours, at the heart of the globe's key trade routes, a place for commerce and communities to thrive.
This big long city thing. It's like the one thing that would be cool. It's like this sounds like something like, hey, if we're terraforming a planet.
Yeah.
It's like the way it sounds. You're like, this sounds like we're terraforming something.
It actually sounds kind of neat, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the thing is that they want to force you in there while they live in these big, giant palatial estates and have access to all.
It's like now they have more land.
Yeah. That's ultimately what it comes down to, I think.
And also, with Bill Gates, it's like, why? It's like, especially in places like, why are they why is Microsoft buying all this land in America?
Yeah.
Why are all these huge mega companies buying random land everywhere?
Some dumb witch says, say no to soy, shrinks the jewels. Absolutely, yeah. Avoid that stuff. It raises your estrogen. It lowers your testosterone. You definitely want to be drinking soy. You want to be eating animal fat and proteins. That's good stuff. At least if you're a dude. I'm not really sure about the best diet for women, to be honest. But let's see.
Well, heck, even for women, too much estrogen's bad for you. You get to have a balance.
Right. Yeah, well, if you look at, what's that Impossible Whopper? It's got I think it has 40... whatever it was, it has 8 times the amount that you take if you're going in for chemical castration. if you eat an Impossible Whopper, it has 8 times the amount of estrogen produced from eating that thing than one of your daily doses of your chemical castration pill. So I'd keep that in mind. Thank you for that, some dumb witch. But and
then Buddy Bell says that looks, the city, it looks good on paper, but how does it work in practice?
I think
you said, he's like, let's throw all the poor people here and it'll probably just it'll start out nice, and then the people that build it won't do upkeep, and then stuff will start breaking,
or they just have to make it look nice. It's like, how many movies you've seen? Do you imagine whenever I don't really know about this, but and maybe in Nazi Germany, do you think they told them, well, you're off to the gas chambers? No, they were like, you're going to take a shower. We're going to go clean you off. And I think that's how, when you see a movie I was going to hit the Mega Millions lottery story because somebody won the second largest jackpot ever. It was like $1.2 million or $1.2 billion.
Someone won it.
Yeah, somebody won it. And if they take it in a lump sum, it's $780 million that they would get all at once instead of 30 annuity payments, which 30 million, geez, that'd be what each time? What about 30? It'd be like $35 million a year, right? No, times 30 years. Yeah, that'd be right. Yeah, about $40 million a year for 30 years. I think you'd be good. But I think the reason I was going to bring it up. I didn't because we had plenty of other stuff to talk about. But the taxes, you're going to pay like 40% of it in taxes, and a lot of even lottery winners, they tend to go broke. And one of the things that they don't do is they don't get financial advice and stuff like that, and they blow a lot of money. But not only that, whenever you buy everybody in your family a house and say you've got an estate that's worth over $1 million, half of everything you have over $1 million goes to the government when you die. So if you try to like buy a big farm for your kids, and that's why a lot of farmers are getting put out of business. Because all their land, it takes a lot of land to have a successful farm, and they might clear $100,000 a year on this, multi-million-dollar tract of land. But when they go to leave that to their kids, they're going to, everything over $1 million the government gets half of. So that's a big cut. They're going to have to sell some of that land, and they're not going to be able to, the farm's not going to be able to produce as much after they do that to cover the taxes. But with the lottery, everybody, it's paid for by tax money to begin with. So everybody that bought a lottery ticket already contributed, and that's why I don't buy lottery tickets. I mean, every now and then I will, but like I pay enough taxes already without voluntarily giving the government more money.
And then it's like the government takes on their cut on top of that. Like you say, they're taking that much of it already.
Yeah. And then every year they're going to take a cut of everything you buy, your house, your car. They're going to give you, everything that you buy, you're going to pay sales tax on. Just think about how much, of that money that you get from the government, that you're going to actually be giving it back to them. And that always makes me think of the movie like The Island by Michael Bay. Do you ever see that, where everybody thinks they're plot twist? If you've never seen The Island and you plan on watching it, spoiler alert, if you've never seen The Island and you're planning on watching it, stop listening for about 5 seconds. But I think it's pretty obvious because it's a trope in a lot of different movies. But when you actually win the lottery, it turns out that you are being sent off to have your organ harvested because they're in a farm for celebrities to have clones of themselves so they can have unlimited organs.
Or it's like that old short story that was adapted to a film called The Lottery. It's that whole town that there's absolutely no violence, nothing. They have a lottery every year, and whoever wins, they stone them. Yeah.
And there was another, what did I just watch?
Also, that could also probably play into Wicker Man kind of theory as well.
I just watched something that was like that too, and I can't even remember. It was very recently. I just watched it the other day. But they basically, you win the lottery and they send you, they send you off to Eden or somewhere. What was that called? It's the Humanity Bureau with Nicolas Cage. They said Nicolas Cage was hard up for money, so he did a whole bunch of movies for basically whoever was willing to pay him. They're like, sure, I'll be the leading man in your film. Yeah. So that was one of those. And
it's like I got burnt in a big. It's like I've been burnt in a big wicker thing. Yeah. I've not done much worse.
Well. You tell me how you think that thing will work out. Doesn't sound like a good idea. It doesn't sound like somewhere I want to live. So where are you going to go if there is a natural disaster, for one, and to two, there's no way to be self-reliant in there. You're going to have to be interdependent on everybody. Yeah, and
technologically pretty cool. And like I said, it's like if you were terraforming,
colonizing a new planet,
or just to have that technology. Just say if shit hits the fan really bad and the Earth, our ecosystem gets thrown out of line. Yeah, something like that could keep humanity stable.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's a crazy idea, but just in our current climate, how it would be used is...
Yeah, it's like, like you say, it's like, let's get rid of all the poor people so the rich people don't have to see them.
Man, we got mad men wanting to run the world just like we always have. We used to realize this. We used to watch, cartoons with the early Superman cartoons, black and white stuff. There was always some mad scientist trying to take over the world. For some reason, we think it's this insane thing that, elite billionaires and trillionaires and royalty and scientists would never try to harm anybody.
It's like, what do we have? All these James Bond.
Yeah,
it's like all these James Bond villains. Like some of the stuff they were doing is more sane than some of the stuff you.
Dude, Ian Fleming was an MI6 spy, and he wrote about real stuff. And so a lot of this stuff that you see, that even back in the '60s, looks like it's technology that we don't have it today. We probably had it back in the '60s.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's so many things. Like I've noticed, people that end up just suiciding. That had these cool technologies. Mm-hmm. Like I found so many things on YouTube about people for like $4,000. You can make these generators that run off magnetism that can power your own home.
Oh, you better shut up, Dustin. I'll take you out, man. Hey, well, let's get on to
about disappear.
Yeah, they do, and now you've talked about it. So yeah, we better keep an eye on Dustin. Now, this is the Battle of Athens we were going to get into tonight.
It's like, to quote Elon Musk, it's like, I'm not suicidal, so if I end up dying that way, it wasn't me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why Ghislaine Maxwell Why they put her on suicide watch. Her lawyer said she wasn't suicidal, but they put her on suicide watch anyway. And they put her into a low, that was something that happened over the last couple of weeks. They put her into a low security prison down southeast somewhere. I can't remember, maybe Florida. But she's in low security now, so probably not as good a watch on her as we need. But I'm still holding my fingers. Crossing my fingers, but I'm not holding my breath. That the reason we haven't seen that
You'll
list
be on the blackout challenge.
that the reason we haven't seen that list is because they're actually maybe doing something with it, because we saw that they did find lots of photographs and lots of picture discs of people, and they said that it was people in compromising positions and that it was underage stuff.
Sweeping it under the rug.
Yeah, so
all the people in power aren't going to be in it. They're like, look, we're not on this list.
Yeah, they want to take out, and then we know it happened, and people haven't forgot about it, but people have. What are we going to do? What do we do about the Vegas shooting? They never told us what happened with that, and we just kind of go on. But Battle of Athens, these guys didn't just kind of go on. This is a pretty amazing story to me. Now, for a little bit of background, you have to. Okay, Tennessee was controlled. The Democrats had basically taken control of the state of Tennessee in the 1930s. You had FDR, was a very popular president at the time. We look back at a lot of his programs that they credit him saving the country for, and a lot of economists now say that he probably actually prolonged it, but the Depression by about 10 years. But because the TVA came and gave people jobs and people bought a wash machine and a Chevrolet, then Mr. Roosevelt saved us all. Well, Paul Cantrell, he ran for the sheriff in the late 30s in McMinn County, Tennessee, which was the cities of Athens and Ottawa. And they say that E.H. Crump, who was the political kingpin there in Memphis, they say he basically stole the election to deliver it to Paul Cantrell in 1936, and he was reelected for a few different times, and he went on to in the 40s to be a state senator, and his former deputy Pat Mansfield was elected sheriff while he was in the Senate. Well, during that time, the county of Athens, or the town of Athens, had actually tried to get the federal government to come in and oversee the elections and make sure that they were fair and everything was on the up and up. But they requested in every election year up to there, and it never happened. But in 41, they had a law that reduced local political opposition to Crump's officials because they reduced the amount of voting precincts. Basically, they took out the people who could vote, had the power to stop Cantrell's agenda from going through. They eliminated those positions. So they went down to 12 justices and went down to 12 voting precincts and 14 justices apiece down to 7, and 4 of those were Cantrell men. And the sheriff and his deputies at the time were actually paid by how many people they took into jail. They didn't have a salary. They got paid by how many arrests they made, how many jails, how many sentences they got, and how many releases. They got paid each time one of those steps happened. When somebody went to jail, when they were released, when they were or when they were arrested, when they went to jail, and when they were released. And this kind of led to, people driving through town, and they'd pull a bus of people over and say, you all are intoxicated, and take them all to jail, and that would allow the deputies to get bigger paychecks.
Like you're breathing fun.
Yeah. And they actually, between 1936 and 1946, these fees amounted to almost $300,000. That's a lot of money in 1930s and 40s money. Now, Cantrell, he not only intimidated voters who voted against him, but he also allowed ineligible people to vote, and that's kind of what kicked off the Battle of Athens. While all this is going on, there's the war is breaking out in Europe, and America's becoming involved, and the U.S. Department of Justice did finally come around in 40, 42, and 44, but they didn't actually take any action on anything that they found. And it was a matter of record that voter fraud and vote control was all through the whole political process here in McMinn County. So there was also a lot of other stuff, a lot of corruption going on in the town. There was gambling and bootlegging. They looked the other way for that. They let that stuff fly as long as they were paid off, of course. And then they would arrest tourists coming through, people walking down the streets. Just anybody they could to find an excuse to get them paid. So it was a big problem that they were on this fee-based system. And
I wonder if that's the reason why there's a law in the book in Tennessee that you can't like sell bologna on Sundays. There's one about spitting on Sundays and selling bologna on Sundays.
Hey, we should do a show on old laws like that sometimes. Yeah, that'd be fun. I used to have a book of that when I was a kid, of stuff that was still,
Or like that old law about saying, it's like, why is everyone, the kind of that straw man argument of like, oh, you can buy guns in America, but you can't have kinders.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's because it's a stupid arcane law about saying something about being inserted into candy and you can't, it makes it illegal.
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, that's why, the Kinders, like the Kinder eggs that always had toys in them that you could get everywhere else in the country, and they had to change this stuff to sell them in America.
No, I had no idea about that.
Yeah, people are like, oh, you can go to Walmart and buy a gun, but it's like, well, see, that shows you that laws are stupid.
Well, they did just pass in the House, they just passed the assault weapons ban, what they're calling the assault weapons ban, but it basically boils down to no pistol grips on rifles and no big magazines. So it barely passed the House 213 to 217, or 217 to 213, and actually I heard there were 4 Republicans that did not vote. So there were 4 Republicans that could have actually stopped it. So you had some Democrats vote against it. So we can hope that the Senate, that Manchin and Sinema will, and maybe a couple other reasonable Democrats will block it, but I'm not really holding my breath for that either. But if that were to pass, it would almost certainly, as soon as someone had their guns confiscated, it would go to the Supreme Court, because somebody would sue as soon as they had, and they wouldn't make that wait out. They would send that up pretty fast through the courts. But I want to show you something real quick, since we were talking about that before we get on to. I sent this to Dustin, and he called it fighting fire with fire. And
I like this.
Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. So for a little bit of background, apparently the ATF has been going around, and if you buy a couple of guns, automatically the gun store if you buy more than one gun at a time, the gun store automatically has to now file some kind of form. And some gun stores won't even sell you multiple guns in one day because they don't want to go through the problem of dealing with it. But they have to send a form to the ATF and tell them what you bought, and that and it's a de facto gun registration. And the ATF has been sending people around. If there was a tape that came out, somebody that had recorded on his Ring doorbell, and he had asked, the ATF showed up at his door and said, hey, you bought a couple of guns, and we're going around and checking them, just want to make sure you still have them. Now, my response would have been to tell them to get off my property, probably call my lawyer, and just see what I needed to do from there. But this guy had a much better solution to this. So
it's the big brain meme.
Yeah, Galaxy brain here for sure.
I'm going to show you a video that is probably going to make chicks pregnant. So there's a crazy video of the ATF going.
I don't know who this guy is, but
the ATF is like, hey, you bought some guns. We need to see if you still have them because of straw purchase. A complete violation of your Second Amendment, your Fourth Amendment, and just basic common sense and humanity. Here's where the ATF agents, they go to one dude's house, and the dude goes, oh yeah, I'm going to go get it. Hold on a second. Closes the door, calls the cops. He goes, there's somebody out here pretending to be a cop who wants to see my guns. And that's how you get this confrontation right here.
Hey, turn around. Let me see your hands. Turn around. Let me see your hands. Okay, let me see your hands.
So this is the local cops going
Get on the ground.
to the ATF, who's still on the guy's porch.
Get on the ground.
And they're treating them like they do everybody else, which is nice to see.
911 10-3.
I'm a federal agent.
Get on the ground so I can find out who you are.
It ain't happening.
This is how you get shot.
I got my ID.
Do not reach for your waist.
Okay, well,
Keep your
apparently that's who he
hands
is.
up.
Salty Cracker, okay. I'm not familiar with Salty Cracker. And I guess that's why it says Control Salt Delete.
Get
Yeah,
on the ground. Now.
I had such a good laugh at this.
You are the one making the mistake.
And then you find I get on the ground. I'm a federal agent. If that got you off, have a cigarette. Get ready for round 2 because it gets way better.
Do not resist.
I'm not resisting.
You're acting like a moron.
Wait a second.
Wait a second. Wait a second. Don't do this. Wait a second. I got a medical condition. Get my license out of my pocket. We're getting you secured first.
The best part is
Hold on, I'm hyperventilating.
I can't breathe.
I'm not. Stop resisting.
this guy he's a federal agent, right? So he that's how they're supposed. That's how they train the cops. Is the person should do what you tell them to, right? And here he is. I'm sure if he told somebody to get on the ground, he'd expect them to get on the ground. But here he is. He thinks he's too good for that. Well, I think I'm too good for that too. I don't have to get on the ground just because you tell me to.
And that part when he walks up and he said he's like, I got a 9 on my hip, and the cop's like, no, you better not touch that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, you were that close to getting your ass shot, dude.
Exactly, and that's like, I don't think you have any authority to tell me to get on the ground, but if you come and point a gun at me, if you're a cop and you tell me to get on the ground, I'm not going to argue with you at that point. I don't want to get shot. Yeah. So I'm going to get on the ground, even though I'll probably, sue you afterwards, because there's probably not a good reason for you to have me getting on the ground, but, I'd rather not get shot, even though I don't feel like you have any authority to tell me to do that. But let's finish watching this.
Would you please get my ID out of my left pocket? Stop resisting. You.
It's called using your brain. This guy didn't do it.
Where did that come from?
Sir, please
Yo, get the taser out. My
And that whole thing, if you just comply, how
Yeah.
they like to do.
Yeah.
Don't make me.
It's like the Fed boys even.
Get him cuffed. Get him cuffed.
Some of them which says salty as fire. Well, we have to check him out because I definitely enjoyed this video.
Fuck you, Patriots.
Because I've not seen him before.
Me neither.
Quick!
I like his Abe Lincoln
emergency.
photo there, even though I'm not a huge Abe Lincoln fan. I have real mixed feelings on Abe. We can get into that someday.
Yeah. But
It's way more complicated than a lot of people who have a strong opinion on him either way. Often is way more nuanced of a position, whereas he was trying to save the Union from a lot of being attacked from a lot of different angles. It was not just the Confederacy against the Union, for one. Even though he did do some tyrannical actions, like I said, I'm still torn. I don't have a big enough picture view to fully make my mind up on Lincoln either way. But that is a cool photo of him there. That he has a cool painting of him.
got salty. I'm surprised you're not in the salty army.
Well, we'll check him out, Sean, for sure, because that's the first I've seen him, and I did enjoy that content. But let's get back into the Battle of Athens. We were telling you about the political corruption going on there in
We
Athens.
started talking about this. I know what this is now. I was like,
Yeah.
Battle of Athens, and then whenever I looked at it, I'm like, okay, I know what this is now.
Oh, it didn't immediately click when I told you that's what I was getting to? Okay, well, so we were getting up to the part where we're explaining basically how this guy from Memphis, E.H. Crump, basically had his guy Cantrell and was Mansfield in Athens, and basically they were running the place. Cantrell went to be the state senator and won the election there with help from Mr. Crump out there in Memphis, and they were running bootlegging and all this stuff. They were arresting people for on fee basis, so the more people they arrested, the more money they got. And the deputies also did, not only the deputies, but the news in the area, the newspapers were supportive of this. So you had everything against, in this case, the Republicans, but it really didn't matter. It was just these people were a gang, and were in the Democrat Party, and you can still say that that's what the Republican and Democrat Party are today. But basically, this was just a gang who had taken over this part of Tennessee at the time, and they were using the Democrat Party as their vehicle to do it. But during the war, while these guys were over in Europe and Japan fighting, or in Europe and the Pacific fighting, there were 2 servicemen on leave who were shot and killed by Cantrell supporters. And all these servicemen who were overseas from McMinn County were hearing about this stuff, and there was about 3,000 of them who were in World War II at the time, and it was about 10% of the population. So they start hearing about this, and they're one of the common let's see, according to contemporaneous article by Theodore H. White in Harper's Magazine, one veteran, Ralph Dugan, who had served in the Pacific and the Navy and became a leading lawyer post-war, he thought a lot more about McMinn County than he did the Japs. If democracy was good enough to put on the Germans and the Japs, it was good enough for McMinn County too. And when they were demobilized, all these guys came home and they were getting out their pay, right? And remember, the local law enforcement there gets paid for how many people they arrest, and they know these guys are coming back home with a lot of money in their pockets because they're getting lump sums when they're getting out. And so these deputies are running around grabbing 4 or 5 at a time, grabbing them every time they're at the bar, whatever it is, they're grabbing them and arresting them. And these guys are like, look, when we were in an occupied country, we could go have a drink at the bar and walk home without having to worry about being arrested. So they're building big resentment against this. And this was in 1946. They got together and they had a meeting, and they said, "Hey, look, here comes our guest correspondent, Orville Redenbacher. They got together and they had it was basically a military veterans nonpartisan group. They got together and they looked at the representation of the county that they lived in, and they knew there was more Republican population than Democrat population. So but they wanted to be fair to represent the people who lived there. So they made a recommendation for 3 Republican candidates and 2 Democrat candidates in the local election, including the sheriff. And this guy, Knox Henry, is the main candidate that was standing against Cantrell. No, I should mention too, Cantrell, after he went to the Senate, he came back and became sheriff again, and Mansfield ran for the Senate seat. And basically it was because people were already pissed at Mansfield for how he was doing the pay to arrest thing, the pay for by arrest thing. They weren't really that mad about Cantrell, because even though he won by voter fraud, he really had an uneventful several years in office as far as stuff like beating up veterans and stuff like this. Well, anyway, these guys get together and they support. They find some candidates to support. We got a chat there. Oh my God, what a cute puppy! Yeah, that's Orville Redenbacher.
Some dumb witch says that basically like Tim reminds her.
The boy that's remiss and reminds of Salty. Yeah, Tim, they'd get along well. Yeah, Tim will be back. If you missed earlier in the show, he's just on a little hiatus. Like I said, probably on a $1.50 trip to Thailand or wherever it is that Tims go whenever they do whatever they do. The American GIs, they tried to get together and form an opposition to this political machine that had taken over their town. And they went ahead and armed themselves. They armed a big group of them and were getting ready for the election because they were going to be poll watchers and they were going to make sure that they didn't get taken advantage of. Well, Mansfield, who was the sheriff, he was running for the state senate, he also organized and he hired 200 deputies, from most of them from out of town, some from out of state, for $50 a day, which was the equivalent of $695 in today's money. So the sheriff was paying them 200 deputies that kind of money, and
a day.
Yeah, and that tells you the kind of money they were collecting from hitting these servicemen
So if
coming
you just
back.
think about it, you're like, Selma, $700 a day.
For just stand on the pole and beat people up, and that's what they did. There were normally about 15 patrolmen on duty, and there were 200 armed deputies for the election. Now this all pops off at the waterworks polling place when this black farmer, Tom Gillespie, he comes in and he's trying to cast his ballot, and they tell him he can't put it in, and then somebody knocks him out with brass knuckles, and he runs off, and they're trying to catch him, and they end up shooting him in the back. And actually that's the only guy, the guy that shot him was the only guy that actually faced any charges from this whole thing. And he got 3 years in prison for shooting him in the back, but he only served 1 for being before he got paroled. Well, basically they found out what was going on over here, and these veterans started organizing, and they started sending guards out to the poll places too, where these were happening, and there was a big confrontation where the crowd built up and said they were going to go get their guns, and they all got together, and a couple of Mansfield's men took these ballot boxes from these precincts where the fraud was going on, where they got caught. And there was one where a guy had found he'd asked for the box to be opened to prove that it was empty before they started counting. He was a poll watcher, and he was legally entitled to do that, but they arrested him for asking to do that. So anyway, they take these ballot boxes and take him to the jail, and they refuse to give them up to let anybody see them. Well, these veterans, they start surrounding the jail with their guns, and then they actually start a shootout. And they went and broke into the National Guard armory, and they got I think it was 60 M1 Garands, or no, it was 60 Enfield 308 rifles, and a couple of Thompson submachine guns and some dynamite. And they went and surrounded the jail, and they were having a big shootout, and they threw dynamite. And let's see if we can find. They got a quote right here that I'd like to read.
Let's see. Hey, spell the T was late, but
Hey, spill the tea.
Sean was saying, okay, the guy that got shot, he was killed, correct?
I don't think he was, but he may have been.
Did he live or?
No, I don't think he died. Gillespie, the black farmer that was shot. No, I don't think he did die. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think he died. But yeah, anyway, they have this shootout, and eventually, these veterans, they realize that time's running short. If they want to win the thing, they've got to settle this before morning, because when morning comes, the federal troops will be there, the state troopers will be there, and it'll be them against a whole lot more people. So they're like, we got to win now. So they end up they do close in on the jail, and they eventually blow up a bunch of cop cars. They throw dynamite all over the place around it and blow these cars up, and they estimate there were between several hundred and maybe 2,000. And Bill White, the main leader, he had at least 60 under his command. But there's a lot of different accounts of what actually ended up happening. But let's see, opinion differs. Here's from the American Heritage article. From 1985, opinion differs on exactly how the challenge was issued. White says he was the one to call it out. Would you damn bastards bring those damn ballot boxes out here? We're going to set a siege against the jail and blow it down. Automatic weapons fire erupted, punctuated by shotgun blasts. I fired the first shot, White claimed, and then everybody started shooting from our side. A deputy ran for the jail. I shot him, and he wheeled and fell inside the jail. And then in 2000, Bill White claimed, he said, boys, I'm going to tell them to bring the ballot box here, and if they don't, we're going to open up on them. I hollered in there. I said, you damn thief grabbers, bring them damn ballot boxes out of there. That's just what I said. He didn't make a move down there, and finally one of them said, by God, I heard a bolt click down there. One of them grabbers did, they started scattering around. Well, I had a pistol in my belt with a shotgun. I had a shotgun and a rifle. I pulled out the pistol and started firing down on there. When I did all that, the whole line started firing down in there, and a lot of them got in jail. Some of them didn't. Some of them got shot laying outside, and the battle started. And they say it lasted for several hours, and eventually they, like I said, they closed in on them, blew up their cars. They saw an ambulance come in, and they thought, this is coming in to pick up wounded, but actually they picked up Cantrell and Mansfield, and they bailed out of the jail and the ambulances. And eventually it started, without leaders.
It falls apart.
Yeah, the thing kind of fell apart. So the GIs call a meeting, and they get the ballot boxes. There was some rioting and stuff, people burning police cars, but it's mostly gone after the ballot boxes were recovered. And the mayor of Athens was on vacation, and the city policemen were nowhere to be found. Well, the morning of August 2nd, this is the reason why we're talking about it today, because August 1st is the anniversary of it. Some minor acts of revenge happened, but the public mood was mostly... Yeah.
Well, no, yeah. Almost.
The public mood was, quote unquote, a euphoria that had not been experienced in McMinn County in a long time. And the governor was going to activate the National Guard. He started to, but then he rescinded the order because the GIs had already taken the place over. They had a meeting, and they counted ballots, and they ended up, but then they counted their own ballots, I guess. But they ended up certifying the election of all 5 of the nonpartisan GI League candidates. And one of the first things they did was they changed the payment method. They gave them a $5,000 salary cap, and they gave they basically got rid of the whole police force. They said you can't do pay for arrest, you get paid a set amount. And they shut down a lot of the gambling houses and stuff that were being protected by them, and basically restored order to the town. The GIs did there. They said, if we're going to go over fighting for spreading democracy to Japan and Germany, then we're gonna be doing it at home for sure. And I've always found that story inspiring, because it's people basically saying we've had enough. We're not going to let somebody run rough shot over us just because they're the government, and they have that, this air of authority and air of legitimacy, because, some more people, a larger group than our group decided that that's going to be in charge. But not only that, they cheated, and they're not going to rule us that way. So,
yeah.
So that's the story of the Battle of Athens, and I appreciate y'all sticking with us for it. Spill the Tea says, thank you, I lost track of time. Oh, the new grandbaby. Yes, that's right. Congratulations, Spill the Tea. We're so glad that you're still making it in with us. We're so proud of you for that grandbaby. You treasure that baby. Is it a boy or a girl? Oh, wrapped around his finger, so it's a boy. All right. Maria says congratulations, and Spill the Tea says, "Dang, a shootout for hours." Yeah, that had to be crazy. These guys were from just fresh from the war in Europe and then the Pacific.
That was a cakewalk.
Yeah. So they really didn't have any trouble with some, and that I didn't really mention that in there, but they really had a experience in strategic positioning and squad maneuvers, and really these deputies stood no chance. There were only 200 of them, and there was between several hundred and 2,000 people surrounding them with well armed and with explosives. So they really didn't stand a chance. They had no choice but to eventually turn over everything, and that's what happens when Americans stand up and resist when somebody's trying to impose a tyranny on them. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what we find these truths self-evident. That was 1946, Maria, August 1st, 1926. And with that in mind, we've got our primary election coming up here in Tennessee. So be sure and get out there and try to find you somebody because the primary, everybody complains about the general election. You only got 2 crappy ass choices, but a lot of people don't vote in primaries. So go and, organize with people who you agree with to take over your local primary. It doesn't matter what party it is. I would go with the party that's more likely to win in your area. So our area, Republican was going to win. You're wasting your time running. I don't think the Democrats even ran anybody in the primary, in the local primaries. They didn't even run anybody. So in an area like this, you're going to run as a Republican. So you run as a Republican, and you put your values on down there, and you find somebody that you support. And if you don't, run as a Democrat, whatever. Just wherever it works, whatever makes sense for where you live, to spread your values there.
Just find the one that's the least piece of shit.
Yeah. Well, that's the good thing about your primary election is you actually have a chance to get somebody in there who's not necessarily a piece of shit. So that way you don't have the 2 shittiest choices when it comes down to
because that whole election. Everyone's like, oh, you got to vote for the lesser of 2 evils. It's like, well, look what that's gotten.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't help.
If you didn't vote for the lesser and just voted for somebody else.
Yeah, and I'm not even really a believer in democracy. It's like just because there's more of you than you get a say. I mean, any system where you have a say on how I live my life is absurd in my opinion, but at least you use the tools that you have in order to get more freedom for yourself. And the tools that we have are state and local governments right now, because unfortunately they do have a lot of authority over our lives. So if you can take those and like we said, make parallel economies, but also use your local and state governments to do things that you believe in, so that you don't get run over by the federal or the state government. That's what those things are for. That's why we don't just have one government. So you have some control, a safeguard, if you will, against things like here what happened in McMinn County. In that case, we had the local government that took over, but it was close enough to people that they could do something about it. That's the difference. You don't want to be going up against Washington, D.C. in a situation like that. So that's why if we are going to have government, local is the way to go. And remember that those are coming up. Early voting's over, but the primary is actually the 4th. So if you're in Tennessee, check that out. But I think that's about all we got for you tonight. I appreciate you joining us, Dustin. Thank you for coming tonight.
Always.
And we will see you on Wednesday night when we do news and current events roundup with Tim. I'm looking at the wrong camera. There we go. There we are. But yeah, Tim and I will see you. Hopefully Tim will be back. Maybe just me. We'll see. We'll see where Tim's at. But one of us
in the world is Tim San Diego.
That's right. You have a great night too, Spill the Tea. Be sure and watch the rest of the episode. Let us know what you think about it. Hey, thanks to everybody for joining us. Everybody that was in the chat, y'all really make it enjoyable for us. And thanks, Sean. See you later. See you, some dumb witch. Who else we got in there? Yeah, buddy. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's nice to have you in the chat. And we will see you next time. Have a good night.
See you.